onto the podium, and a little bit of a pensive luck here because the Belgians, of course, are all shooting now for Johan Museu. One of the early big names, Mirko Celestino, second in Milan-San Remo. Clearly a man on form and looking to improve his World Cup pacing today. Dario Pieri, who finished fifth in Milan-San Remo, has also finished second in this event in the past. Top German expectations from Stefan Westermann, second last year in Paris-Roubaix and second just last week in a local classic here called the Grand Prix E3. And this is his team captain, Eric Zabel, 3 wins under his belt and tipping Westermann as the winner. World Cup winner, Paolo Bettini, after his great victory in Milan-San Remo. Luca Paolini finishing third, a teammate indeed of Bettini, and a very strong team. And the big cheer reserved for Johan Museu, 3 times the winner, and today can he make it 4 and take the record? Recently a family man, Enrico Cassani, 7th in the Tour de Flanders last year. And Tom Boonen, no longer with the US Postal Service team, moving across to Quick Step this time around and finished 5th in Het Volk, while Fabio Baldato here has had 2 second places in this event, still looking for the win. Raivis Milošević, a winner of the 3 days of Depana just down the road a couple of days ago. And the crowd here bringing out the family pets as well by the look of it. All eyes to the front again now as they continue to see the stars step on stage. Filippo Pozzato, 21 years of age and winner of Tirreno Adriatico. He's a lot to do yet though to equal the feat of Michele Bartoli, who won this event in 1996 and is showing a great return to form. And Ludo Dierksens, winner of the first race of the European season in February, the Grand Prix Ouverture. Former stage winner, the Tour de France, Serge Baguet. And the man who knows what it's like to win this event, he's done it in 1999, Peter van Petegem. Oscar Freire, twice a world champion, on a new team at Rabobank this year and has good form. While there are other big names here too, like Dave Brylant of the Marlux team, a team which is riding well. Just coming through the shelter there, Joe Plankett, a slim year last year for him, but he's still a very good rider, and his teammate Philippe Gaumont. And this is Max van Heeswijk, second in Het Volk earlier this month, or rather late last month, and Max himself going well, while Andrea Taffi, the defending champion, looking very content with his ride last year, and the world champion Mario Cipollini, 4th in Milan-San Remo as well. Nico Martin, winner of the prologue in the Paris-Nice last month, and a rider who can surprise. While there are plenty of other contenders making up a great field in Bart Voskamp, former Tour of Luxembourg winner in Mark Wouters, all of these riders hoping that today will be their day in a race which is known as La Ronde.
Stefan, looks like the weather's closing in a little bit for the Tour of Flanders, but this Tour of Flanders is always, it's a bit strange this year because nobody seems to be the #1 favourite. There are about 10 guys, and I think you got a good chance.
I hope so. So I'm in good shape, and we will see. So I think the stuff from Quickstep was sickness and everything. It was just for the newspapers. I think they are very fit, and they are the favourites for me.
The important thing about Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix is you have to have the motivation and you have to know the course.
Yeah, so I'm 10 years in the peloton. I know the course, and you need a lot of luck too. So, and I think that will be that makes a difference today.
The team behind you, or is it going to be for Eric Zabel as well?
No, the team's behind me. Thank you.
Well, Brad, this is always a special race. I think you enjoy these races up in the north here.
Yeah, Flanders is always special. You know, it's the classics period. It's Wevelgem, Roubaix, and we've just done 3 days of Depans. So this period is quite important to a lot of people, and especially in our team with the director here, Marc Madio, who's a Roubaix winner himself. So everyone's really motivated, and you know, this typical day in Belgium. So hopefully the rain won't arrive, but you know, it'll still be a good day.
These races are all about experience, and you've been to Tour of Flanders before. Are you starting to learn a little bit about where to place yourself for the climbs?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of races are all about experience, and I learnt a hell of a lot last year. Like you say, being well placed on climbs, sections and pavé, you get to know the roads as well, and everywhere in Belgium looks the same, but the more you ride, the more races you race in Belgium, you get to know just a little bit more when the climbs are coming up, what to do in between the climbs, and it's all about experience. And you know, the experience I gathered last year will be great help today, I think.
Good luck today.
Thanks a lot.
So, first time at the Tour of Flanders, it's a bit of a scary thing to come to for the first time, I would think, because it's a race with a huge reputation.
Yeah, well, it has, and we went over the parcours in the last week or so, and it seems very hard. Some of the climbs I've never seen before are very difficult. With the rain today that I think will come out, I think it's going to be a tough day.
Talking to your teammate Brad Wiggins, he's quite excited about this race. He says that the Français de Jeu get very motivated because of your team manager, Marc Madio.
Yeah, well, Mark's got a big history with the classics. He always he was a big classics rider, and he's got a bit of a soft spot for them. So when they come around, he gets motivated. He starts, you know, getting everyone motivated, and the whole team lifts that little bit.
But it's again looks to me like a typical Tour of Flanders day. Lots of wind, possibility of rain, and plenty of cobblestones.
Yeah, well, it's going to be dangerous, and you know, with all those guys rushing onto all the wet cobbles, it's going to be a real shit fight out there. So hopefully we can stay up the front. Thanks.
It's nice to be back at the Tour of Flanders. You've not been here for a couple of years.
No, I mean, I was just saying to Bjarne on the way here that when I came here in 1982, I never thought I'd be back, you know, 21 years later. So it's nice to be back on the road.
It's been an up and down team manager's career for Sean Yates, but now you're with a big team, and you seem pretty motivated. How are the boys this morning?
Good. I mean, we have the defending champion, so to speak, Andrea Taffy. We have Hoffman, who's going very well. We have a strong team to support them. I mean, things could have been better on average, but we're confident.
Taffy's a very special bike rider. Never really had very many victories in his career, but when he does get one, it's always a big one.
Yeah, I mean, he's won a lot of World Cups. I can't remember exactly, but you know, like you say, he's had a few big victories, and he's a rider with a big class. So you know, hopefully today he'll show that.
Team tactic today, is it to let the other teams fight it out amongst themselves, or have you got your own plan?
Our tactic is to make sure that Taffy and Hoffman are in the front group after the Koppenberg. There's no one team, maybe Rabobank, but it's very open this year, so I think we follow and we see, but the most important is that those two are in contention after the Koppenberg. Thank you.
Ladislav, it's great to see you. A couple of years ago we thought you were going to abandon the sport, came back, rode the Tour de France, and now you're at the Tour of Flanders, a race that you know very well.
Yeah, the sport life is still continuing for me. I was, I mean, I took the break 8 months, and I think it didn't affect me bad. I mean, I relaxed at that time, and I built up the system, and I came back with a big morale to race again.
You think that psychological rest was what you needed to come back and do all that work that you do in a race like the Tour de France for Armstrong?
That's what I see sometimes with the great athletes. They cannot stop like in one time. They always do the kind of stop and then they come back, and so that's probably like part of the sport life. I mean, end of the sport life. So,
how's it possible though? Because what a long career you've had. The track, World Championships, and then coming through in a huge career on the road as well.
It's probably because I love cycling, so that's my life, and it's my lifestyle, and I cannot live without it.
Great, good luck today.
Thank you.
Christian, not seen you for a while, but form's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's doing all right. Just come back up here into Belgium a little unexpectedly, but tried to help out Max and Eki as much as possible today.
Good to see Max riding so well, because he's a rider whose career I've followed for many years now. And this year he's kind of been promoted to team leader because of the absence of George Hincapie.
Yeah, it's come at a great time that he's come into form. But yeah, Max has been just always on the teetering spot and always been in a supportive role. And now that he has some support of us, who knows what he could do today.
Well, it's a difficult race, Tour of Flanders, and as always, weather conditions are typical. The important thing is keeping at the front before the early climbs, and then it's every man for himself.
yeah, there's even more climbs this year. So it just one after another in the final today. So if he keep out of trouble and stay at the front, like you said, yeah, he should be good. All right.
Max, it's great to see you riding for US Postal Service. We go back a long time to the El Motorola days. It must be good to ride alongside guys like Lance and George again.
No, it's yeah, real nice, real good team and good organized, and just really happy to be back in a team like this.
You've had a very good start to the season, and a lot of people put you as an outsider for Tour of Flanders, a race that you know.
Yeah, I know the race, but this week I had a little bit problems with infection in my head and a little bit stomach, so I don't know how my condition is now in this moment, but I will do my best.
Who's your number one favorite? Everyone says all the story about Quick-Step this week has been a lot for the press, and maybe they're just hiding their game.
Yeah, I think also, but I think for me the favorite is I think Bettini. Okay, bye.
Tour of Flanders is a very important race for Lotto, but it seems as if this year there's been a bit of fighting between you guys and Quick-Step.
Well, in the media it is, but not on the riders, I think.
Who's going to be your big favorite for today's race?
Peter from Petergem.
It's a race that he loves, and it's a race that you have to be super motivated for, because even when you have bad luck, as everybody does in the Tour of Flanders, you have to keep coming back.
Yeah, but he's living here, so he's super motivated. He knows exactly the roads, and that's, I think, really important in this race.
Do you see Quick-Step as a big danger, because they've got Boonen, Vandenbroek, Museo, Bettini. It's a lot of men in the finale.
Yeah, normally they're the strongest team, but it doesn't mean that the strongest team is winning, so we'll see.
Good luck. Thanks. Stewie, great start to the season. Nice jersey. Yeah. Tour of Flanders, race that you like.
Oh yeah, I mean you gotta learn it. You have to like it, otherwise there's no point really even taking the start. It's just one of those races like Paris-Roubaix where it can be a killer day. Really hard conditions, pave, cobble climbs and wind, so I've got to go. The race has begun.
The start again of the Tour of Flanders, the 87th running of the event, as they roll away now to a gentle start. I can tell you, in fact, that Andrea Taffy has had a problem with his bike and is now trying desperately to change it. Trouble with the cleats, apparently. While the field is leaving, Taffy is not. But he's not showing any signs of concern, because there is quite a neutralised section of the event and he should have plenty of time to catch up. There's the world champion, Mario Cipollini, doing justice to the rainbow colours of world champion. A lot of riders also saying that the Rabobank squad, especially Michael Bogart, will ride well today. One thing's for sure, they can expect many thousands of spectators out on the route. Even though this is a new route and it's brought in 3 more climbs, making a total of 19 in all, and a very tough end to the day. So this is a look back at the rollout. All of this happened earlier today, and we can now go out onto the course.
Look at the long stretch of the main field right now. They're going through the town of Edelaar. If you come up from the other side, you're climbing away from the town of Oudenaarde, where there is now a new museum dedicated to the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Tour of Flanders. Everybody accelerating into the safety of that main peloton right now, Phil, and they're ticking away on the kilometers. They know very shortly they will be making the acceleration towards the Klausberg, and that time gap at the top there, you can see on the right hand side of the 2 figures, inside of 10 minutes right now, with 105 kilometers to go. And with the kind of terrain we're looking at, we're probably going to have to count around about 2 hours and 35-40 minutes before they get to the finish line here in Merbeke.
Sharp left. We've just taken the gap inside 10 minutes. Just a reminder about the 4 riders still away. Michael Rick of Gerolsteiner, Jackie Durand, Thomas Lisa and Vincent van der Koeien. He rides for the Flanderen team. I beg your pardon, he rides for the Bank Giro lottery team. Johan Capio, the team manager of that, former champion of Belgium. Retired now. I think this will be his 2nd season out of the sport. Might be his 3rd. But he'll be very pleased with the ride by Van der Koeien, who is still up there at 9:52. Lerpegem is where we are with the peloton, concentrating on the peloton, of course, because This is where the action is, and it's certainly where the winner will come from. There's no way those four will stay away today. There's a lot of concerted action, particularly from Rabobank, who have split up the Quick-Step team, and that might be a good move, because Quick-Step, we're having a look here at the four leaders, Quick-Step get control of this race like they did in Volk, then nobody else is going to get a look in, and that'll be a great concern to the top teams.
Well, I'm quite surprised, Phil, as we looked back at the main field there, really to see Rabobank having so close to the front at this stage of the game. I would have expected them to hold back a bit and see one or two of the other big teams setting the tempo on the front end of the main field. That was the tactic on previous occasions here at the Tour of Flanders. The team of Johan Museeuw have hidden themselves until the more important strategic points of the race. Jackie Durand here, former champion of France, unbelievable bike rider. He's always prepared to go out on the attack. He's obviously getting pretty close towards the autumn of his career right now, but never at all shy of going out on a long raid like this.
Now, and there's our newcomer, Van der Kooi. This is Thomas Liese, been a great track cyclist, and he's developed into a very good road racing cyclist. And Team Coast certainly need a man like Liese today to have a good ride, because the morale couldn't be any lower at the moment with all the problems the team has had.
Very strange indeed, because in fact to this moment Jan Ullrich does not have his racing license issued, and in fact if he doesn't get it tomorrow he won't be able to start in the Circuit of the South, which is supposed to be his new expected start to the season. Apparently the Team Coast have to lodge 2 million euros, which is basically $2 million US, with the Union Cycliste Internationale, and I don't think they're going to be able to put that together. So that's a long story, and I don't know that we're going to hear the end of that in the next month or so.
Well, not unless you particularly volunteer in, Paul, to put the money up.
Well, I thought you might dig into those pockets of yours, Phil. You've got some pretty rich friends around the world who might like to see Jan Ullrich getting himself his racing license, but I'm quite sure it is something that will get sorted out eventually, even if Jan Ullrich does have to walk away from Team Coast and go to one of the many teams that would certainly love to pick him up, including CSC. And of course, I'd heard from my very good friend Jim Okovits that Team Phonak were very interested with getting Jan Ullrich on board as well.
Mind you, it won't be for 2 million. They'll be able to bargain at this stage of the time, because Jan knows now if he doesn't race soon, he's going to find a comeback. They're pretty much impossible, and I'm sure he would love to get turning those wheels again. And if he doesn't ride the Circuit de la Start, it means, of course, he won't have his clash with Lance Armstrong, who's also choosing that race.
Well, I don't think it'll be that much of a clash between Jan Ullrich, who I can't remember turned to pedal in anger for the last time. It'll be more a bathing himself into the sport for the first time in about 18 months for Jan Ullrich, who's had a very up and down relationship with the sport over the last couple of years. Still Robbie Hunter, if you look on the right hand side there, Phil, doing an unbelievable job taking the pace up, and in fact they've eaten about 1 minute of the advantage of the four leaders. Kop van der Wegstrijd on the left hand side is the group of four leaders, but Rabobank are obviously very serious right now, and they may feel that once we get to the first section of very closely related climbs, that this main field is going to start blowing up all over the roads of Flanders here right now. Durand going to the front, knows how to set the tempo, keep the group motivated, keep the pace high. He knows that as long as they can keep an average speed of around about 42-43 kilometers an hour, they won't lose that advantage all that quickly. And it's really now for these guys at the front just a question of sharing the pacemaking. Thomas Liese coming up through now in the light blue jersey. And the main field quite happily letting Rabobank do for what I would say, Phil, is actually much too much work right now. They've got too many men to the front end of this main field, because there's still 2.5 hours of racing to go. 101 kilometers. They're going through the town now of Loop again. That will be 146 kilometers covered in the bike race so far, and they're probably not very much more than 8 or 9 kilometers from the start of the Klausberg. The leading group of four are an awful lot closer than that. Bramati going through. He's quite prepared to help the pacemaking on the front end of the main field as well. A little further back, one or two of the lime green and white jerseys of Team Phonak riding the front. Michael Bogert looks very comfortable here in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, very happy to come to this bike race. It's got such a huge reputation. Adrie van der Poel is a man who won this bike race a few years ago when I thought on that occasion Sean Kelly was going to win this race.
So did Sean Kelly.
Kelly was one of the riders who was one of the kings of the classics in the 1980s. He won all the big bike races, and in fact that year he was beaten in almost a photo finish on the line by Andre van der Poel, and that was really one of the big regrets of his career, if he could say he had any regrets, not winning the Tour of Flanders.
It was a major regret. It was the one race he always wanted to win. He finished second 3 times, and he lost again later the following year to Claude Croquillon, another man who would never normally get near Sean in a sprint finish. No, but Sean wasn't to win that race. He won plenty of other races, Paris-Roubaix, Milan-San Remo, Tour of Lombardy, but the Tour of Flanders eluded him. And really, in many people's eyes, this is the best classic of the season. Certainly in the eyes of the Belgian people. They turn out in their tens of thousands. You couldn't move in the square in Bruges. Almost impossible to actually do your job, because it took time to walk through the crowds to get to any of the riders or their team cars. And then within a minute of the race leaving town, so too is the road blocked up with all the cars as the people try to make their way to the nearby motorways where they can get out onto the race route. And in fact, the bizarre scene we saw driving to the finish was that the motorway had put up signs warning of stop traffic because coaches had disgorged all of the occupants to watch the passage of the race go under the freeway, which of course would be totally not allowed in Great Britain or the United States. But that's the pull of this big bike race.
Gianpaolo Mondini was the rider there from Domenica Vacanzi at the back there, making his comeback to the sport after a suspension. Formerly a member of US Postal Service. Yaroslav Ekimov is the US Postal Service rider getting into the back end there. At the back end of the main field right now, you can see a lot of riders starting to get their early morning extra jerseys off, their overshoes off, getting ready for a serious change in the pace on the front end of this main field. Still David Ramati on the front, deciding to help along with the Rabobank train, and obviously poor old Robbie Hunter from South Africa there in second place has been sacrificed today. He may well not even see the finish line in Meribeke. Such is the tactics of the sport of professional cycling. Many riders on a team will have to dedicate themselves to doing the work for 180 or 190 kilometers, leaving the glory and the finishing off job to their stronger teammates towards the end.
Well, they have got a good team. There's 3 possible winners there: Stephen de Jong, Oscar Freire and Michael Bogart. The rest are there now to drive the race on and hope they get in the right position when the time comes. We're betwixt the Wolverberg and the Kleisberg at the moment. We're probably around about 12 kilometres from the Kleisberg, and that is quite a steep climb. We'll be climbing it for the 14th time in the history of the Tour of Flanders. The first time we climbed that mountain was, well, it is a mountain here in Flanders, I suppose, 1955, and that was the year that Bobet won.
Looking at the yellow flags, the Lion of Flanders flags, Phil, they're all out there this afternoon, aren't they? They're obviously flying high for Johan Museo, who they're all hoping. Nice to see the leader of the World Cup at the back here, Paolo Bettini. A superb ride by him, a superb ride really by the team to get themselves that victory, slipping away from the sprinters before the end there in Milan-San Remo. But today I think the name might be a different man. One man we haven't seen in the main field right now is Frank van den Broeke. An unbelievable up and down career that young man has had. I've known him since he was about 8 or 9 years old. I used to race with his uncle Jean-Luc van den Broeke, and he's had a very hard time, and it really just goes to prove, despite all the difficulties had with the governing bodies, to come back and ride at the level that he's able to right now, I think is quite a remarkable feat.
Back at the front, Hunter steadying the pace. Paolo Bettini choosing this little lull between the 2 climbs to drop back there, probably take his shoes warmers off and get ready for the action, but his confident manner will go behind this big peloton and then feel he can pick his way back through it to the front before the roads narrow down again. Kai Hundertmark from Telecom was also back there now, and these are the riders now from Quick-Step. This is Luca Paolini at the front, and just behind him there is the man Paul was just talking about, Frank van den Broeke. So I think probably with the World Cup leader at the back, they've all come to the back just to just to keep an eye on things. Wilfred Peters there in the team car. I bet he wished he was still in the bike race.
Well, I'm not sure, especially with the temperature being like it was at the start of today's race. Wilfred Peters had a very long and illustrious career, the big buddy of Johan Museeuw. He probably does miss the bike racing sometime, but look at that organisation of the team there on the right-hand side, Phil. They all went to the back at the same time. There was Paolo Bettini making sure that everything was ready for the acceleration which is going to come, and they're going to move together forward on block as a team.
Celestino here, winner, or second rather, of Milan-San Remo. Great result for him, breaking away on the descent, going into the finish in San Remo, and got a great second place. Surprising rider, this man, and comes up with some very, very good results. So Medico also doing what everybody seems to be doing just now, back here with the 4 leaders. Not too far away from the next climb, which will be the Kleisberg for the 4 leaders.
Well, they shouldn't be too far away, Phil, from starting that climb right now, and this is it as they go around the corner. It's a short, steep climb from this side over the Kleisberg. It's called the Mont de l'Enclus in French. They drop off the other side, across the bottom, and then it's the Konokterberg, and it's steepest close to the summit there, as you can see, at 15%. It's a tarmac, a well-surfaced climb. The average grade is 6%, and they climb up just 66 meters in altitude. It's not very much, but it's just the fact that there are 19 such climbs here in the Tour of Flanders that makes this bike race so tough.
Well, I suggested they'd have about 8 minutes at the climb, and they're slightly better than that, just approaching 8.5. For Michael Rick, Giron, Lisa and Van der Kooi. But I think they'll lose a best part of a minute on this climb. It's 1.1 kilometers and is quite steep. Steepest part is 15%, but it runs out with quite a steep average as well. And the hills get closer together now as we go into the heart of the Flanders countryside. Thomas Lisa setting the pace here at the front.
It's also nice to see that the sun is coming out right now after what announced itself at the start of the day as going to be a very grim day in the saddle for the Tour of Flanders here, because there was a small misty rain coming in off the sea in the early part of the morning, but they did announce that the sun would be au rendezvous in the latter part of the afternoon. But still, with this wind, Phil, coming off the coast, it really is a chill Tour of Flanders this afternoon, with the temperature 6 or 7 degrees centigrade when you bring in there the chill factor. You can see that time gap still coming down nicely as far as the main field are concerned, just inside of 8.5 minutes right now. A big bike rider there on the right-hand side, Jackie Durand, a wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, if you remember, in Saint-Brieuc, when the weather changed so dramatically after the first 40 or 50 riders had started, and many of the big favourites having to go off at the back end of the main field and losing huge amounts of time on what was a very difficult and precarious prologue time trial.
That's right, and it was the one that took out the British champion Chris Boardman on the very first half mile of his Tour de France, who was out. Very sad. Jackie Durand, a specialist of the long breaks. He's done them in just about every race he's ever ridden. I interviewed him this year on the stage at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide, and I asked him at what stage we could expect the long breakaway, and he just smiled. But he loves these long attacks, and they've worked for him on many occasions. As we now start the climb of the Kleisberg, just over a kilometre, little more than half a mile.
Well, actually, a couple of years ago, he became the first Frenchman to win Paris Tours after a 42-year absence of the Frenchman at the top end of the podium in that classic. And that's a classic that I certainly wouldn't have said suited his style, but he was able to surprise everybody with a long move on that occasion too, and that was back in 1998. He is a great bike rider, Phil. He's been the great champion of France. 2 times he was the French national champion. He's not really won all that many races, although his total is 36. Most of those are in the small French exhibition races, but the ones that he has done have always been reasonably big, world-class performances.
Well, he's done 14 seasons now as a pro, and that's a long time to stay at the top at this level, because each year the level seems to get that much higher. 8:18, so the peloton still sitting out a little way from the start of the Kleisberg, still showing the pace with Rabobank and Quickstep. We're into Berchem. 8:17, 8:16 now, 93 kilometres to go. Virtually all of the climbs. The leaders have got 4 behind them, so they've got 15 left.
picking their way through Berchem, and that's just on the outskirts for these riders for the Klausberg as well. They'll have around about 6 kilometers, I would say, in arrears over that leading group of 4 riders. Again, Robbie Hunter not saving anything at all right now. It's a question of dedicating yourself to the team's performance on a day like today, and they've obviously got, Phil, I think, a lot of confidence in their 2 top men, Oscar Freire and of course Michael Bogert. I think, as you said, the big attackers like Johan Museo are going to have a very hard time getting rid of Michael Bogert on a stage like today. But if Bogert wants to win this, basically he's got to try and do it on his own. So they'll try and have a 2-pronged attack. They'll try and have Michael Bogert and Oscar Freire together at the end. Freire will try and follow the large groups, and the lone attack will try and come from the Michael Bogert side.
One thing's for sure, we're in for a terrific finale over the hills of Flanders. And you can guarantee that the Tour of Flanders will never let you down. The course makes the race, and the riders have to race it. 2.9 kilometers for the peloton now to the Klausberg, as we look here at Robbie Hunter of South Africa. Far and away the best professional from that country. Driving on at the front, behind is David Bramati and Wilfred Kretskins of Quick Step. And then we've got the rest of the Rabobanks all watching. You think there are only 2 teams in it at the moment, as there'll be plenty of more hoping they can latch up to the train when the moves come. And if you think it's easy, just look at the long line of riders now, just hanging on to the tail of what is a very compact head of the peloton.
I tell you one thing, these riders we're looking at the back end of the main field right now are in a situation which is known in cycling terms as being on the rivet. They are sitting on the front end of their saddles right now. That expression comes from the fact that in the old days the leather saddles used to have a big brass rivet on the front, and if you were sitting on the front end of that, it meant you were right at the limit of bursting. And I think 1 or 2 of these riders must be thinking right now, what are we doing here? This is the dangerous side for me, Phil, of the sport of professional cycling nowadays out on the open roads. There are so many of these traffic circles and what they call traffic furniture on the road that makes it very dangerous, especially if you're at the back end of the main field, because sometimes you come into a corner like that and it can be totally unannounced what's out on the exit, and that's when we get some pretty dramatic crashes. Let's have a look what it looks like from the rear end of the main field. Pretty scary.
Yes, you've got to keep your eyes and your wits about you, and when you are, as Paul has said, on the rivet, then you're just holding that wheel in front and hoping it goes the right way. Dodging through the on-stay rider there is Alvaro Gonzalez de Galdeano. This is Robbie Hunter. That looks like Kretskins.
Michael Bogert on the far side, keeping himself to the front end of the main field.
Well, another man, you know, could win this race. He's got terrific form. Servaes Knaven, former champion of the Netherlands. These are hard-working men now, and that gap on the top of your picture keeps coming down at 7 minutes 57. Inside 8.
Everyone getting nervous now because I don't really feel the Klausberg is a climb where it will make very much decision. It's a fairly easy climb in terms of professional cycling, but everybody wants to be in the first 40 or 50 places for the Konokterberg, which is a very difficult steep climb which runs out at around about 14%. Hunter, I don't think, will be going too far towards the finish line in Meribeke today because he's doing an awful lot of work. You can see now the pink and blue jerseys of Team Lamprey moving up to the front, and maybe a chance for the Italian rider Maximilian Scianri to get a good performance in what he admitted to me this morning is probably going to be his last Tour of Flanders, but he did that 2 years ago.
But also, Paul, watch out for Cipollini again. He's come forward with a couple of teammates at a time when he expects the race to crack, and make sure he's in the right position. He's not very far off the nose of this peloton, and that indicates to me that Mario Cipollini is looking for a result today. You can see him tucked in with 2 teammates around him in the Domina Vacanzi squad, the boys with the striped zebra kit on, as Hunter just knows all about zebras where he comes from in South Africa, but he is now just driving on the front. Clearly committing suicide as far as winning the race goes. Not his job today, even though he packs a sprint. He's there to hold this race at a high speed and try and stop too much change of movement behind, and hopefully will crack the field.
Let's not discount Mario Cipollini completely either, Phil, as a sprinter, because he finished 9th in this race last year with the World Cup leaders jersey on his shoulders after winning, of course, Milan-San Remo at the start of last season, then going on to win Ghent-Wevelgem in probably what was one of his most attacking races ever of his career. I think he enjoys these races in Belgium. He enjoys the adulation of the crowd, because when he comes here, they are so dedicated to supporting the man who has to be one of the most flamboyant characters the sport has had in the last 10 or 15 years. And his bus at the start this morning was pretty discreet, wasn't it?
It was, and I don't know anybody that actually dislikes Mario Cipollini. They admire him immensely.
Except the Union Cycliste International.
Well, they know. He just keeps on pushing the rules to the limit, but of course he gets rewarded by a heavy fine and a lot of publicity.
Well, there was quite a good April Fool's joke out on the internet on the 1st of April this year. They said that the white shorts have been banned, and would have been an awful big earner, I think, for the Union Cycliste International, the governing body, because I don't think Cipollini would have listened to that if the rule had been instigated, would he?
Not at all. These are the leaders of the peloton now as they climb up the Clashberg. This might cause a change of leadership. Bramati heading the charge. Robbie Hunter just dropped back slightly on the climb, but not too far. Cipollini wise to try and stay in position, but he'll find the climb a little bit of a struggle. It's quite steep, this climb, and it's just over 1 kilometre long.
Marcos Cipollini moving up into about 5th position on the right-hand side there in the pink and blue jersey of Lampre. Mario Cipollini very close to the front, keeping himself up to the front and out of danger. Bramati as well, Phil, is doing an excellent job here for the team, and this is what it looks like at the back end of the main field. This is Mondini wearing number 98, and you can see 1 or 2 riders starting to feel the pressure of what has been a fairly fast race so far, just a shade inside of 40 kilometres an hour average.
Well, they've hung on just about as they get over the top of the climb, quickly shift up the gears and hook on to the back of the peloton, which might ease down a little bit. We're on towards the Konokterberg next. 7:13 is the gap.
There's a chance now, once you get over the top of this climb here, the Mont de l'Enclos or the Kleisberg, it's completely flat for about 150 metres, and then you plunge off on what is quite a steep and fast descent. As you can see, the acceleration happening here. They've then got around about 5 or 6 kilometres to the next climb, and there'll be, I think, a general acceleration will start towards the bottom of the Konokterberg, which comes up next, the 5th climb of the day, because then you plunge off the Konokterberg, and it's the start of what I've always regarded as being the first real strategic point of this bike race, the Eau de Quaremont, the Old Quaremont.
88 kilometres to go, 55 miles to the finish. All of the climbs that matter are now in this sector, and they're going to come thick and fast, and this big peloton soon is going to become a man-o-man battle front, I think. 7-11. It's a pretty famous name in the old days, wasn't it?
Reminds me of a bike racing team they had from the United States.
Yeah, once rode the Tour de France.
I was reading some stuff just recently about Steve Bauer taking part in the World Championships again, but that was through the organisation of the World Championships, which are going to be in Canada towards the end of the season. It'd be nice to see Steve Bauer again. He was a great bike rider. He loved these classics as well. Always got himself psyched up for races like the Tour of Flanders, and was so very close to winning Paris-Roubaix by finishing 2nd in what has to have been probably the closest of margins.
Yeah, centimetre. Well, unfortunately, everybody remembers the winner. Who did win it?
I think it was a bloke by the name of Eddie Planckaert.
There you go.
Famous cycling name. Kop van der Weegstraat, these are the 4 leaders now on the start of the Konokterberg. Jackie Durand, Michael Riesch, Thomas Leese and Van Kooi. Very happy to get himself some publicity for his team. That's the average grade, 8.16% the Konokterberg. It's over 1 kilometre. And you can see at the steepest part there is as it gets up towards the summit. This is one of those horrible climbs that seems to get steeper as it gets towards the top, and it's 13% the gradient at the top end of the climb. Not a very pleasant one.
It's only been a regular in the Tour of Flanders since 1998. 1997 rather. We started, that was the first time we've ever climbed it, and this will be the 7th time they've gone up it. But these 4 boys are seeing their lead crumble now. It's down to 7 minutes. Not quite as sharp on the climb as the drivers behind. But the weather a lot kinder just now. Not so much sun, but it's the wind doesn't look to be as strong as it was down at Bruges.
At least it's not wet, because that's one thing these bike riders really do hate at this early part of the season, because if it rains in conditions like this, it is absolutely glacial. Interesting thing about this climb is once you get to the summit and you take a left-hand turn, you turn into a road called the Ronde van Vlaanderenstraat, Tour of Flanders Street. Take a left turn, then drop away, and they're around about 500 meters from the summit of the Old Quaremont, but they have to drop off this hill where we are just now, go through the town in the bottom, and then set themselves up for the Old Quaremont. These guys will survive to the Old Quaremont, but I would think by the time they get to the top there, their advantage is not going to be very much more than the 3-minute mark.
Well, they've been halved. The lead has been halved now from what they had a couple of hours ago. Inside 7 minutes now. The race themselves, it's a bit of an in-battle back there. They're not really chasing these four down. They'll come automatically. It's a battle between the men who want to hold position at the front of the peloton when they're on these very narrow roads, because a puncture, a crash, a mass pile-up, and you could be on the defensive for quite a few kilometres.
Bit fishy there, isn't it? Seeing Van der Kooi on the back?
Yes. Yeah, stop carping on. Right. 4 riders clear for most of the race today, and we're into the last 55 miles. Thomas Lisa, who's quite a good friend of ours actually. Thomas, he's been around a long time. We've seen him race a long amateur career before he turned pro. Since he's become a pro, he's become a road rider. He was basically a track rider. Very good time trialist, as he's proving today, I suppose, one way and another. But it's good to see somebody from Team Coast now getting themselves in front of the television cameras, because their season has not been good. They were suspended before they even started because some riders hadn't been paid, money hadn't been lodged, etc. Ulrich still can't race for them because his money has not been lodged as a guarantee, and I'm very doubtful, in fact, if Jan will finish up racing for this team. Gone last weekend was the man who was expected to do wonders for them, Alex Zuller. He's now gone over to Phonak, and that'll be the first time indeed that Alex ever ridden on a Swiss team. And he's full of confidence too. He's got great morale, but he's left behind a team with very poor morale.
In fact, a lot of the riders very upset by the movement there of Alex Zuller, because he was almost the captain on the road, wasn't he? He was the man who kept the team together, gave them direction. You can see the acceleration here, this group splitting somewhat. Jackie Durand going off the back here. It's the two Germans opening up the advantage, and Van der Kooi going off the back of the group here with Jackie Durand. I would think they will still manage to survive and accelerate. Durand is a very experienced professional bike rider and realizes that as that climb got very steep towards the summit, he could just knock off a little bit, recuperate somewhat and accelerate as we go back now into the province of Eastern Flanders.
Well, there's the gap, 2 on 2. The Germans versus the rest. As Lisa and Rick, they've also raced as amateurs on the same team. And Michael Rick isn't a bad climber. He's not a man we think of as being a tough mountain climber. He is a big rider. But I remember winning a stage of the old Tour of South Africa, right up in the north of the country, where they are serious mountain passes. And he had a bad time early on, and he crossed the gap after a flat tyre, caught the leaders on the finishing climb at a town called Graaskop, and he actually won the stage at the top of the mountain. There's a very good pancake house up there as well, Paul, should you ever find yourself in the northern part of South Africa.
Well, it's a long way from the eastern part of Africa, but you never know. If I get a long bike ride in one day, I might be able to get down there. A very sensible tactical move there, Phil, I think, by the two Germans, realizing still with 86 kilometers to go, they didn't want to clear off on their own and try and build up an advantage on the two chasers. The most important thing in a long raid like this is to keep as many numbers as possible together, because even though Jackie Durand had a hard time on the Knokterberg there, once it levels out, a guy like him has got such a big engine that he can contribute to the success of the breakaway. This is the front end of the main field right now. They are just beginning the Knokterberg, and it's still Rabobank. Mark Wouters moving himself up into second position there. You can be sure that Oscar Freire is not too far away. Look at Bettini. Excuse me, boys, coming by. He wants to ride near the front end of the main field. You see,
the ditch.
Everybody realizes how important it is on these kind of events to ride in the first 15-20 places. A very nervous bike race like this, you're on the brakes for almost the whole day, and it's in races like this that in the past some riders have managed to wear out a complete set of brake blocks.
So Rabobank still there, the World Cup holder, winner of Milan San Remo, has fought his way through. Watch out for the boys on the right, the Français de Jeu. They're not just there to defend for Jackie Giron, because they are on a terrific high this year. They've had a wonderful start to the year. They won a place in the Tour de France. I think it's almost automatic now. And there is one good British rider who's on terrific morale at the moment, Bradley Wiggins, riding in this event here. And it wouldn't surprise me if Brad gets himself a good result. They have a good sprinter in Baden Cook. Should he get to the finish, he could handle himself better than most in the sprint finish.
He's certainly good at his second attempt here at Flanders, and he actually said to me before the start this morning, Phil, that he felt it was so important having started the bike race last year, because he learned an awful lot about where to be, how to position himself, and of course Belgium very close to his heart, because he spent a lot of his early years here in this part of the world. Quick step now for Phil. I see her starting to make more of a move to the front, more of a presence as we get closer to the Old Quaremont. Frank Vandenbroek in the third or fourth line of riders there with a little goatee beard. You can see just in the middle of the screen. Interesting to see Fassa Bortolo moving one or two riders to the front. I'm surprised to see Michele Bartoli taking part in the bike race here, because he's had a very difficult start to the season, and good to see that former winner also back in the saddle and riding comfortably. Bettini there in the white jersey, winner of the World Cup last year and leader. What a great bike rider, what a great 2 years he's had.
Well, he had, and of course Bartoli was at one stage his mentor. He was the first man he telephoned when he won his first Liège-Bastogne-Liège to tell him he'd won. His life at the back here now. This is Paolini here. They've got the nice little block on. The Rabobank boys are controlling this race just now to their own speed on the climb. As Luca Paolini, well, he's got in front, but he's got a flat tyre.
Well, he's obviously got that information back to the team management there, and good man. He was the man who really set the win up for Paolo Bettini earlier in the season in Milano-San Remo. And Bettini has said about that afterwards, he said, well, basically he did for me what I did for Michele Bartoli for many years, so watch out for him when it's his turn to come round and ride at the front end of the main field.
Well, he just took something out of his front wheel there. Third in Milan-San Remo, gone back in the pack.
Well, this is why you should not ride at the back end of the main field in the Tour of Flanders. Well, that's why it's such a big battle to ride up at the front, and again it's González de Galdeano. Not very much fun here, is he?
And Tom Stremic from the Lambau Credit is the rider on the right in the red. But they're back in the fray here. Although once they get over the top of one of these next few hills, they won't get back, because they'll find that the front group of 20-30 riders should be on the way. I think we just saw Julian Dean at the back. He rides for CSC now, was with US Postal, and comes up with the odd good result. He's a very fast finisher. Bettini riding a brilliant race at the moment. The way he's come back to the front of the pack when it matters shows a man with tremendous confidence. Number 51, good number to have on as well. And sitting off to the left there, Bernard Eistel is the FDJ rider.
Well, it's amazing how comfortable Paolo Bettini looks there, Phil. In the second row, he's out of the saddle, looking very comfortable, dancing on the pedals right now. I'm still impressed by the numbers at the front end of Rabobank. González de Galdeano, 215 there, again in difficulty. But this is probably going to be one of the last times there's such a dramatic compression of riders at the back end of the main field, because next up is going to be the Old Quaremont. Look at this, having to stop at the side of the road. I've not seen this in the Tour of Flanders for some time.
This is Julian Dean, number 3 on the right. Well, anybody who's raced in Belgium has been in this position in these classic bike races, whether they're amateur or professional, because this happens in every race that goes onto these narrow roads. The strong men stay at the front and they hold their positions on the build up to the climbs, because they know what's going to happen on the climbs. 5:56 is the gap, 83 kilometers to go, just over 50 miles, and still Rabobank have the advantage. Here's a flashback. Julian Dean is off to the right of our picture, number 3 there. 126 is Tom Stremic.
And this is why you have to ride at the front. Look at this acceleration now coming from Rabobank. They had an easier climb than the guys at the back, because they were able to control the tempo and set the pace that they wanted to. This is the Ronde van Vlaanderenstraat that they're turning onto right now. They'll drop off the top here of the climb of Kruisbergen. down into the village below, around about 5 kilometers, and they will start the ascent of the Hautes du Granon. The acceleration there, you see how all of a sudden how the main field has been put into difficulty, and the reason they're doing this right now is to make sure that anybody who's lost any time on the Konokterberg there doesn't have an easy ride to the front end of the main field for the Hautes du Granon.
Well, as we come up towards the Hautes du Granon, I think we'll see this breakaway split here. If the two Germans show the same strength, because this is a lot longer at 2.2 kilometers. As you can see, it goes up 91 meters above sea level. This is given 4 stars. Average gradient just over 4%. Steepest of 13. In fact, this climb rather has been in every Tour of Flanders since 1974. An old favourite. We even train over there ourselves in the one day off that we get in the week.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll be training over it this year, Phil. In fact, I don't think I'm going to be on a bike for a couple of months. But it certainly is a very important part of many of the major bike races in this part of Belgium. You can see there just a quick indication, 1,500 meters of cobblestones. They're onto the cobblestones here right now. It's a climb that is used by Kuurne, Brussels, Kuurne, Het Volk, Tour of Flanders. All the big bike races come here, and it is, to me, the first strategic point. This first part of the climb that we're looking at right now is the steepest part of the whole climb at around about 11%. But what I've always found is the hardest part of this climb is the long false flat afterwards of around about 1.5 kilometers. And look at the acceleration there. Thomas Liese dancing out of the pedals. Jackie Durand looking for a bit of respite on the small smooth section there, but the main field will be coming up here in about 6 minutes and 9 seconds time.
Well, Jackie tackled this climb back in 1992 when he was the last Frenchman to win this race, so he knows what it's all about. But the crowd weren't so orderly in those days, because they put barriers down these climbs now to try and stop them narrowing the road down. So we go up towards the top, Cafe on the right, but straight on for the riders. And well, the two Germans, Rich and Liese, are going clear again. They might get a gap long enough to push on this time, as it's a little bit easier just now. Well, you wouldn't think so.
Well, they're coming to the real tough part of the course right now, because once they survive over the summit here of the Hautes du Granon, which I am absolutely certain they will do right now, they've got the Paterberg, the Koppenberg, the new Koppenberg, which was brought back into the bike race last year, and then the first of 3 brand new climbs that have been put into the Tour of Flanders this year, the Steenbeekdries, which although only 700 meters in length, is a very steep and nasty climb. These two guys were put into difficulty before, and judging by the gap starting to appear, Phil, they may have a more difficult time reintegrating the front end of the bike race. This is the panic at the back end now. Everybody battling. Bettini's had a problem, and that is Bettini, and what a blow, Phil. Look at this. Bettini has a front wheel puncture. He doesn't want the wheel from the neutral surface. He wants the car of his own team to put the wheel in there, and that's going to give him a hard ride now to try and get back up right before the Hautes du Granon.
Well, that's the look at the draw. He was in such a good position. His hand is up as he makes the right-hand turn. Now he's got to get up to the Granon, and that's his best chance. But what he's going to find there, Paul, is an awful lot of riders stopping on that climb. It's going to be a tough return now for Bettini. Now, we believe he wasn't the man for the race to win for the team. We think that's Johan Museeuw. Bettini was going to be the sort of super domestique, but that is a very strong man off the front of this bunch.
And you did notice that none of the teams stopped back for him right now, because this is a very critical part of the bike race. We're just coming up to the Hautes du Granon. You can see the accelerations. Everybody's looking for their teammates right now, trying to move forward. That's Van den Broek in about 3rd position right now. You can tell the style, the way the top end of his body is just moving along, trying to keep himself right at the front end of the main field. Cofidis accelerating down the outside. That was Philippe Gaumont. This is Ivanov on the front right now, looking for his man Ivan Basso.
Ooh, and there's a lot of trouble here.
Oh, they're taking
just
risks.
About held on. I thought he was going there.
It's Joe Plancart going around that corner. He knows how to get himself into a good position. It's going to be very difficult now, Phil. We're actually in the first kilometres of the Hautes du Granon. This is the tarmac section that wiggles across the roads, and this is the part where it's going to be so difficult now for Paolo Bettini to move forward, because as you can see, there are about 4 bike riders across the width of the road. Look at Plancart going round there. Oh, and that one year they're going to have to take that pylon out of the way, because in fact there was a crash there. I think it was Polini went down just in the corner.
There's O'Grady feeling his way through. He's been stopped. You're right, somebody went down. It was a Rabobank, I think. There's still somebody down there, but he's out of sight of our helicopter, so we can't help you as to who it was at the moment. Anyway, but they've got round it, dodgily so, at 5 minutes 4 seconds to the 4 leaders, who are now 2 by 2. And
Cipollini moving up on the right-hand side.
Indicating to me he's really on form today. He's riding this race very cleverly indeed. Not hitting the front, but always in the right place when he knows it matters.
Well, that's the important thing. And one man we haven't seen yet is Johan Museeuw, but in recent past, that's the way he's ridden the Tour of Flanders. He'll be in there somewhere in the first 15 to 20 places waiting. The other man that I haven't seen too much of right now, and I'm absolutely certain is still there, is of course Peter van Petegem. There are a few Lotto Domo team riders there, so obviously he's not too far. Let's have another look at this. Oof.
That's when I thought Plankert had gone. His back wheel chipped the corner, and that's where the rider from Lampere went down. Still, here we are now, the peloton. We can't get to the back just now to find out what's happening to Bettini. Rest assured, he'll be trying to rejoin. Looks like the air balloons collapsed there. Not a good moment for that either, as we come on to the old Quaremont.
Well, Peter van Petegem was right in there. I got a quick sign of him in about 5th or 6th position in the middle. You can see now this is a bit of a problem. This is the problem that's going to be for Paolo Bettini. There he is on the right-hand side. He's just come back with a group of riders. Very unfortunate for him. He's in about 75th position right now, so he's going to have to pick his way round. Once the race starts to accelerate and there starts to appear the gaps in the main field, he's going to have to jump round groups of riders to get himself into this bike race. Plankart has done a very good job. Big risks, but it's going to pay off for him because he doesn't have to struggle at the back end of this group.
I think this is Wilfred Kretskins here on the front as well for Quick-Step, who is the workhorse at this stage of the race for them, as he's doing a very nice job of riding these cobblestones on what is the steepest section here as they come up to the barriers, which will bring them up into the town. And he's got nice tempo there, but imagine now if you were Paolo Bettini the problems you've got, because the riders behind won't be as smooth as this one. They'll be struggling, the road will be totally blocked, and his rhythm will be completely disrupted. There's a long chase in store now for Bettini if he's going to come back up to the leaders here as they come up through the square. Now this is what I'm talking about at the back of the race. That's Jord Ludwig, who is in trouble for Seiko just there, as they now continue at the front with good tempo riding, but it all looks too good at the front. It's at the back now where the race starts to get itself into deep water. I think this is Wilfred Kretskins then of Quick-Step, who's leading the tempo and keeping a very good tempo indeed on the climb. The cobbles don't desist till you get to the top here of the old Quaremont, and it's good, narrow, but fast roads will take us towards the Peterberg.
Well, this is a good move here by Quick-Step, and they will, I think, probably be just setting a false tempo right now, because they will hope that their man Paolo Bettini will be able to pick his way round one or two of the weaker riders at this point. They're just going past the little cafe halfway up. Van Petegem, you can see in the dark glasses in the red and white jersey there, moving up into about 6th position. In front of him, there's a Telecom rider. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't Stefan Weissermann. In fact, Weissermann a bit further back there in about 8th or 9th, looking very comfortable. He loves these kind of bike races. This race and next week the Paris-Roubaix, which is coming up, are the races where he really does shine. Eric Zabel also very close to the front. There is Cipollini in about 20th position. There is Danilo Hondo, the champion of Germany, also moving forward right now.
And there wasn't Paolo Bettini, because we didn't stay long enough there. That was a shot from our helicopter, so when the picture sort of goes out of focus, it's actually the exhaust fumes of the helicopter itself doing that. And that's the best way to get the pictures right now on these narrow roads. Good fast riding being done at the front here. Lotto have got their man up there, Peter van Petegem. There's Eric Zabel. There's still some good guys here, and trouble at the back here now, because this is Kretskins here, and now I'm not so sure it was Kretskins at the front then. So Kretskins now in trouble and looking to give a teammate a wheel there.
Well, that would be one of the team leaders. I didn't catch it. It was so quick. It could have been Boonen who had gone down there with a problem. Let's just have a quick look and see exactly who it was. 53 is Kretskins. He seemed to be taking his wheel out to give to a teammate who was on the other side of the road.
Yeah, well, it is in fact David Bramati. Now, it's a strange swap that, because Bramati is a workhorse, not a leader.
Well, the order will have been given by the team at the early part of the day to look after certain riders, and maybe the fact is that Bramati is going very well right now.
Well, this can only be Luca Paolini now, setting the tempo on the front. because he's the only one left. We know Bettini's whereabouts. It's not Tom Boonen, and we know that it's not Servais Knaven or Frank van den Broek, or indeed Johan Museeuw yet.
Well, I saw Frank van den Broek riding in about 10th or 12th position, so he's actually made a very good start here to the Old Quaremont. This climb has actually been lengthened, unfortunately, Phil, since I was racing. They get towards the top and they turn off towards the right, and it's put an extra section of around about 300 or 400 metres of cobblestones. They're back onto the main road now, down towards Ronse, and all of these team helpers will look back as we go to the leading group of 4, and they're already on the Patersburg.
Yes, and they're all back together too, so once more they've rejoined just in time for a 4-star 1 in 5 ascent to the Paterberg. And this climb also only short, 350 metres, just a little stab on the legs, this one. But what a stab this is, because it is extremely steep, because it's so short. And this is now hurt Vincent van der Kooi. I think this time he might well be going off the back, but there's plenty of people to give him a pat on the back as he makes his way up. He's been in the lead now for a long time. You see, you don't have to be a star to attract the encouragement of the people of Flanders.
And it is so difficult to ride a climb like this at 20% on the cobblestones out of the saddle. You watch the big guys when they come a little bit later on, the Ludo Dirksens, the Johan Museeuws, they will ride this climb sitting down. Well, it's a pat on the back on the Paterberg here for van der Kooi, but he's going to have a hard time staying in contact with this group for very much longer.
Well, he's got the wily old Jackie Durand just ahead of him. Inside 5 minutes the gap now, and the climbs really have only just begun. Onto the little bit of concrete slabs, which is famous around Belgium. When you race here and you come off the cobblestones, though, they feel beautiful. Now, is this Celestino having a little dig at the front for Seiko? That's where he's made the move.
The reason is because Paolini's looking over his shoulder there to see, and in fact, looking at the size of the group there, Phil, that is a very large group for the summit of the Olde Quaremont. They're off the main road right now, dropping down to their climb, the Paterberg. And it's so difficult right now over the next few kilometres, because they go from the Paterberg to the Koppenberg to the Steenberg Dries, the new climb that I was talking about just a little bit earlier. But a lot of riders, there are 3 new climbs in Tour of Flanders this year. A lot of riders are very worried about this new climb, the climb of Forest. It's around about 1 kilometre in length, but it's very steep indeed. 75 kilometres to go right now, and it's a very large group, bearing in mind that we've already gone over the Old Quaremont.
A lot of tenacious bike riders today, because it was difficult to pin down a real hot favourite, exception being Museeuw, of course, at the start today. You ask anybody who was going to win and we got a different set of names, apart from Johan. But Johan has either put the word out he's sick, or maybe he was sick all week. Nobody actually knows the truth. The riders themselves, one said to Paul Sherwin here, we don't read the press because I don't think they trust Johan Museeuw.
Well, a lot of people thinking that maybe the problems surrounding the Quick-Step team were not quite as bad as they were made out to be. But Johan Museeuw, Phil, as always at the start, did not give anything at all away. The Belgian commentator at the start line saying to him, well, Johan, are you going to try and get on the podium today? He says, I've been trying to get onto the podium for 16 years. And he's done it 8 times.
Absolutely right.
A great bike rider. He never gives anything away. He's a different character to the character of Mario Cipollini, who is flamboyant and extrovert. Museeuw does it all on the bike with his legs, and does it all in a magnificent style when he's on form.
Yes, a very shy character, but the crowd in Belgium love him. And it looks as though we've got a little regrouping a bit at the front there, as this is the head of the peloton, and this could be an interesting climb for them. It's only short, as we've seen, but they'll need a little bit more space for the bunch on that climb of the Paterberg. They've caught the Seiko rider, put him back in the peloton, but this peloton, I'd like to pull back and just see how many riders there are here. Cipollini is just on the tail of our picture. You can see him as we make the turn. He's still in a very strong position. Looking down though, Stuart O'Grady's made it also for Australia. Onto the 4-star climb now, and all action again, but I haven't seen Paolo Bettini, and I would think he's going to be committed to a chase for a while now.
I think he will have moved up on the main road there to Ronse, because he was on the back end of the main field, and that may well be why they haven't accelerated. Second position, you recognise that man there? That is Johan Museeuw.
All of a sudden, just from nowhere.
Just from nowhere. He knows this bike race. Van Petegem there in the pink jersey, Stefan Westerman. These guys know the right moment to come to the front end of the main peloton.
Well,
Fabio Baldato on the left-hand too. Don't forget, he was second in the Tour of Flanders a few years ago. He's just got himself a win there in one of the stages of the 3 days of La Panna. He likes this bike race too. The big names are coming forward right now. You can see them all on the front end of the main peloton. Baldato here. In fact, he's opened up quite a nice little gap over the rest of the main field. Weserman moving up into 4th position. Johan Museo, the first time in this bike race we've seen him appearing with 74 kilometers to go. There is Michael Bogard moving forward as well. The big names are all here right now. The leader there of Lotto Domo. There you can see him on the far side. That was
the thing is that
Bettini was there.
Bettini
just going around the corner.
He's really scurried through the bunch.
This is the back.
Meanwhile, this is the peloton in trouble again. It looks like they're starting a points race on the track now, as they all hold on to the fence before the gun goes. Absolutely amazing, and it's the end of the race for these guys now. So Bettini was wise. He got through on the flatter roads, and now he's going to try and do something, because he's got back up towards the sharp end.
But you see these guys like Johan Museo, like Paolo Bettini, they knew how important it was to get to the front end of the main field. There was the leader of Team Cofidis, Peter Farazane. He's at the back end of the main field. Not great for him. But the big names were right in the first 10 positions when they came to the foot of this climb here, the Paterberg. Unbelievable.
And as Garcia da Costa went through there, good rider when his stage races and